Our top story tonight, Secretary of State Marco Rubio calling on Europe to join America in its vision of restoring Western civilization. The Secretary striking a unifying tone while still urging control over immigration and a return to industrial and military strength. A new development in the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, authorities confirming that a residence was searched, what we know so far. With China's communist leadership undergoing a significant power struggle, a Chinese dissident shares his story about life under the oppressive regime. At the Winter Games, curling becomes controversial as cheating allegations against Canada heat up. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss. And as the Games continue in Milan, another symbol for peace and unity is drawing crowds on Valentine's Day. Sherry Ning brings us the story.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Arlene Richards. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio sending a warning and an invitation for a shared future to European leaders at the annual Munich Security Conference. He says Washington wants a renewed partnership that aligns with President Trump's push for national revival, tougher border control, and a return to industrial and military strength.
America was founded 250 years ago, but the roots began here on this continent long before. The men who settled and built the nation of my birth arrived on our shores carrying the memories and the traditions and the Christian faith of their ancestors as a sacred inheritance, an unbreakable link between the old world and the new. We are part of one civilization, Western civilization. We are bound to one another by the deepest bonds that nations could share, forged by centuries of shared history, Christian faith, culture, heritage, language, ancestry, and the sacrifices our forefathers made together for the common civilization to which we have fallen heir. And so this is why we Americans may sometimes come off as a little direct and urgent in our counsel. This is why President Trump demands seriousness and reciprocity from our friends here in Europe. The reason why, my friends, is because we care deeply. We care deeply about your future and ours. And if at times we disagree, our disagreements come from our profound sense of concern about a Europe with which we are connected, not just economically, not just militarily. We are connected spiritually, and we are connected culturally. We want Europe to be strong. We believe that Europe must survive, because the two great wars of the last century serve for us as history's constant reminder that ultimately our destiny is and will always be intertwined with yours.
Rubio says that after the Cold War, the West descended into a dangerous delusion that history had ended, that every country would become a liberal democracy, that economic and trade ties would replace nationhood, and that national interests would be replaced by the rules-based global order, which would usher in a world without borders. He said that the fundamental question facing the alliance was not simply how much to spend on defense or how to deploy forces, but rather how to share a common understanding of what the United States and its allies are defending. A development in the Nancy Guthrie case today, authorities are confirming that a residence was searched last night. The Pima County Sheriff's Office adding that the warrant was based on a lead they received, but no arrests were made. A person was also questioned during a traffic stop. The Sheriff's Office reminded the public of the FBI reward up to $100,000 for anyone with information leading to the location of Guthrie and/or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved. From an immigration crackdown coming to an end to a push for coal and rising tensions with Iran, NTD's Daniel Monahan has your White House Week in review.
Border Czar Tom Homan says the immigration crackdown in Minnesota is coming to an end.
I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude.
The White House says the operation led to the arrest of more than 4,000 people, including rapists and murderers. Homan says stronger cooperation with local law enforcement helped make the drawdown possible. The Trump administration moved to overturn the 2009 EPA endangerment finding, a cornerstone of federal climate policy first adopted under President Barack Obama.
Over the generations, fossil fuels have saved millions of lives and lifted billions of people out of poverty.
There will be no more climate participation trophies awarded to manufacturers for making Americans' cars die at every red light and stop sign. It's over, done, finished.
Climate groups condemned the move. President Trump signed an executive order directing the military to purchase electricity generated from coal-fired power plants.
When large parts of our country were hit with winter storms, it was coal that kept the power on.
The common sense policies to keep coal plants running, implemented by this administration, mean that my husband and I can keep working, stay where we are, and continue raising our son in our community that we call home.
Vice President J.D. Vance made a historic trip to Armenia and Azerbaijan, pushing a Washington-brokered peace agreement.
Peace is not made by cautious people. Peace is not made by people who are too focused on the past. Peace is made by people who are focused on the future.
While there, Vance signed a new civil nuclear energy deal with Armenia and a strategic partnership with Azerbaijan. President Trump this week said he's sending a second aircraft carrier strike group to the Middle East to prepare for military action if negotiations with Iran fail.
But we have to make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time, and they got Midnight Hammer instead. And this will be very traumatic for Iran if they don't make a deal.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was in Washington this week. He met with President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as other officials.
The talks focused on a number of issues, but mainly on the negotiations with Iran.
Netanyahu expressed general skepticism regarding the nature of any agreement with Iran. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. promoted the new dietary guidelines alongside a new helper, urging Americans to focus on whole foods to combat chronic disease.
We're here today with the most fierce ring fighter in human history, Iron Mike Tyson.
Iron Mike Tyson.
Eat real food or else.
It's a celebration day, right?
First Lady Melania Trump had a busy week. She successfully united Russian and Ukrainian children with their families for the third time. Trump also made Valentine's crafts with children facing rare diseases at the Children's Inn at NIH. And the military hit 2 suspected drug boats this week. U.S. Southern Command says multiple narco-terrorists were killed. Democrats and some Republicans have criticized such strikes, calling them extrajudicial killings. President Trump says every drug boat the U.S. military knocks out saves thousands of American lives. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The House has passed the Save America Act, which would require proof of citizenship to vote if signed into law. Do voters feel confident about the integrity of our elections? And will the Save America Act provide necessary guardrails to protect our ballots? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
Do you think currently our federal elections have enough guardrails?
No, too many loopholes. There's not enough accountability with the elections.
It does allow for a margin of error, so I think if you had to show ID, it would help alleviate any concerns or misconcerns people have about illegal voting.
I never really have had a problem with American elections before. It always seems they've been handled in a fair and honest way before this. It never needed a photo ID of me beforehand, so I don't know why they needed it of anybody else.
We have an extra, 200,000 votes that were cast in Georgia. They just found out that weren't supposed to be cast. Trump lost the 2020 election by, 11,000 votes in Georgia, and there's 200,000 votes there. That right there alone just tells you already that our elections are already, in danger of stuff.
Well, we saw it in the last election with ballot dropping and the ballot boxes and the mail-ins and people getting. Heck, I got three mail-in ballots. I don't even use mail-in ballots.
What are your thoughts on the SAVE Act? Do you think it's a reasonable step towards election integrity?
I mean, it should be. We should already have election integrity. We should already have voter ID for everything. Everyone's saying it's too hard to get ID and it's holding people back from it. They're just lying. They want people not to have ID so they can actually cheat in elections.
I would say that that's probably overreaching. I don't know that we need any more proof other than the proofs that have been given in the past. I don't really see what the point would be other than exclusion.
I had to have ID to get on the airplane to come over here, so got to have ID to go to the bank. got to have ID to drive. Everyone here has ID, and I think it's a good idea.
I think if you look at things internationally, a lot of other countries have protections for their elections, and we should do the same thing.
It's common sense. Everyone, and it's almost demeaning when they say a certain demographic of people aren't able to get it. They are able to get it. They're intelligent people. It's demeaning, I think so.
Yeah, they try to say that it's going to stop 60 million or 70 million women from being able to vote. It's ridiculous.
Coming up, with China's communist leadership undergoing a significant power struggle, a Chinese dissident shares his story about life under the oppressive regime. That and more when we return on NTD. For decades, the Chinese Communist Party has ruled with an ideology of struggle, hate, and deception. The latest power struggle and purges among China's leadership are a sharp contrast to America's model of governance. It's for this reason that many Chinese dissidents have fled to the U.S. in hopes of a better life and freedom from communist rule. Joining us now is Sean Lin, a survivor of the Tiananmen Square massacre, which took place in China in 1989. He's also the executive director of the Concilium Institute. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean.
Thank you for inviting me, Arlene.
Now, we're hearing a lot about the CCP and Chinese leader Xi Jinping right now, but what was it like living under a regime like this where purges and power struggles are its MO?
Well, CCP ruled China by terror and lies. So I think when we live in China, when we see the power struggle inside the Communist Party top echelons, you feel it's a deep fear, and you feel like it's a totally black box. You don't know what's going on in the leadership. And then as a common folks, you feel, I don't want to get in touch with the politics. I want to stay away. And then you know that brutality can extend from their own party to the common folks. If they can treat their own people in such a terrible way, and even party, top military officers don't know whether they have futures, and their status is so vulnerable. So then, for the general public, everybody will feel, oh, one day if the CCP power, crash on you, on yourself, how can you survive? So I think this deeply plant a terror in people's heart. So it's existing even without your own awareness. You just feel about it. Yeah.
Now, here in the U.S., there's a big emphasis on the individual and that through merit and hard work, you can move up the ladder. Now, how do you make it in China living under the CCP?
Well, first, you have to toe the party line. So the Communist Party always have different political movements, and every few years, every 10 years, maybe big ones, from great leap forward movements to cultural revolutions to Tiananmen massacres to persecution of Falun Gongs to persecution of Uyghur groups. Every few years, they have different political campaign. So every political campaign will force the public to toe the party line, to follow the top leaders. So in this way, you know that you need to obey the party rule. Otherwise, you don't have a chance to survive. And now it's digital dictatorship. So, you understand you are being watched by the big brother all the times. To do self-censorship. So this is actually even worse, I think, than the Cultural Revolution time. So people, I think, learn to self-censorship, and then also kind of self-intoxication to see, to tell yourself, I'm having a better life, I have better economic income, things like that. Try to deceive yourself.
Well, you talk about what's happening in China right now and what's happened in the past. And the regime leader Mao Zedong once said, battling with heaven is endless joy, fighting with the earth is endless joy, and struggling with humanity is endless joy. So talk to us about a system that operates this way, and does it have the effect of demoralizing people, or has it had that effect on you?
Yeah, I think that statement from Mao Zedong clearly indicating that the ideology of the Communist Party is against traditional Chinese value against Chinese spiritual life. So their purpose is to wipe out Chinese traditional belief, their spiritual life, so the Chinese people live in a spiritual void. And then Chinese Communist Party can instill those atheisms, their doctrines, their ideology into Chinese people's mind. So you fight with the heaven, you fight with the God, basically. So in this way, if they want to persecute any group, even though it's totally a war against God, but people who don't have spiritual belief would still follow the government's order. So this is a very, very evil tactic the Communist Party have been implementing in China. And so I think it brings so much disaster when people lost spiritual life. It's like a house loses foundation. So, people just can commit all kinds of crimes when they lose their spiritual life and then lose their morality standard. So now, of course, you see so many tainted food, so many counterfeit products, stealing IPs, all kinds of bad behaviors when Communist Party ruin Chinese people's spiritual value, moral standards, and then many bad things can happen. Yeah.
Now, I understand that after you came to America, you went back to China at one point, and you were actually detained there for some time because of your faith. So could you tell us what happened, comparing your experience in China to your life in the United States?
Yeah, so originally I came to the United States for graduate study in the 1990s. And then I started to practice Falun Gong when I was in the United States as a graduate student. So in year 2000, when I went back to China to see my dying father, and I was arrested at the custom, and because of my practice, my belief in Falun Gong. So I was detained and then later house arrest. So fortunately, I was rescued back into the United States due to the rescue campaign in the United States. So it's a big contrast, in China, when you're detained, when you are house arrest, you have no future, because if you violate the political doctrine of the Communist Party, you don't have future. They took your passport already. I actually think I won't be able to come back to the United States at all. I waste several years of graduate school in the United States. And then when I finally, got on the plane to come back to the United States, even the moment that you step on the plane, I feel my body suddenly become lighter. It's very weird feeling. It's just like your body feel lighter. And then when you landed in Atlanta at the time, when you step out, I really feel, what does it mean by breathing the fresh air of the freedom? It just feels differently. A very, very interesting feeling. And, now, of course, you live in the United States for a long time. You understand the freedom much better. And I think a lot of times in the United States, we sort of took for granted that the freedom that we enjoy. It is so precious. And people in China, so many people, crave for freedom. And so this is a very sad situation in China. The Communist Party can rule China for such a long time.
Now, finally, Sean, NTD and the Epoch Times have reported extensively on how the Communist China's ideology is being spread internationally. So now, as someone who used to live there, what has been your reaction to hearing this?
Well, for Communist Party ideology to spread in the Western world, many people think that will be due to some what is called the useful idiots. Those people in the intellectual circles who following the communist ideology or believing the socialist or democratic socialism ideologies. But I think this term may be too simple. It's not just simply idiot. Actually, I think there's a big force behind it, so that it's systematically spreading this ideology in the Western world. So I think it's more in the perspective of a long march in the system. So the scholars who believe in this kind of ideology, they are in the education system, they are in the government, they are in the medias, they are controlled the language in the society, control different international policies. So in this way, it's severely influenced the society, and the Communist Party is very good at elite capture. So, so they can influence the decisions, the policy making process in the United States or in the Western world. So I think this is a large, it's a long-term, large schemes that's been working for a long time. And I think the United States need to wake up seriously. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you bringing that information to us, helping us to understand better how life is in Communist China. Sean Lin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Arlene.
Coming up, at the Winter Games, curling becomes controversial as cheating allegations against Canada heat up. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss. And family life can be hard to navigate when emotions run high. Relationships often become strained. One physician shares ways to manage anger and nurture stronger connections. For your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Arlene.
And I know you have a lot to talk about today, but I want to get right into the Olympics because I know there's a ton of medals today, and I want to know how Team USA is doing.
Well, they had a good day today. Now, yesterday they didn't get a medal. Today, though, we got 3 medals today. Now, these are all won by people who had already medaled, earlier this week. First, women's freestyle skiing. Elizabeth Lemley took the bronze, while teammate Jalen Koff took silver in the women's dual moguls. Now, if you remember earlier this week, Lemley took gold in the moguls, while Koff was right behind her with silver. So big congratulations to those two. Then, in the men's speed skating, the 500-meter finals, Jordan Stolz took home the gold in record time. Now, Stolz, if you remember earlier this week, also won the 1,000-meter men's final. He becomes just the second player ever to win both at the same Olympics. I think it's been like 45 years since someone did that. So pretty amazing day by that man right there, Jordan Stolz. Also, men's hockey, USA defeated Denmark 6-3. Now, they're hoping to medal. This isn't the medal round yet for the hockey team. This is just their second game. They're still in the round robin part, but at least they are off to a good start. Now, if we look at the medals leaderboard here, the updated leaderboard here, you see Norway. Norway has been ahead for quite a while. Those 10 golds. They also lead with 20 overall medals. Italy and the USA right behind them in second and third. So we got a close thing going, but Norway well ahead, at least in the golds. I'll say that. Close thing, at least in the totals, but they definitely have the most golds here.
Wow, USA's got 5 medals. I guess that's pretty good, huh?
I'll take it. They're not always in the top 5 in most. They're in the top. I should say top 3. They're usually top 5, I would say, in most medals at the Winter Games. But usually the USA much better at the Summer Games than the Winter Games.
All right.
So I'm proud of them so far.
Go Team USA. All right, so let's go into more of the Winter Games. We had some heated action going on in this sport called curling, which I thought was a gentleman's sport. So what happened there?
Yeah, some cheating allegations. Here we go against Canada yesterday during a match against Sweden. Now, these are two of the favorites to win the men's gold here. Now, the Swedish team alleges that Canada's Mark Kennedy double touched the stone yesterday, meaning he touched it a second time after releasing it, which is against the rules. Now, rules say that you can only touch the attached handle and you have to release it before it reaches the green line. It's called the hog line, as it's called. The replays seem to show, though, that it was indeed double touched, but officials do not use replays for whatever reason. And when the Swedish team made the allegations, Kennedy had a profane outburst to defend himself. The match was briefly halted. Now, Canada was still awarded the winner of the match, but they were given a verbal warning for using profanity. In addition, they will have more officials at these curling games going forward. But Canada's win yesterday still stands. They ended up losing today, though, in curling. Kennedy, though, for his part today, said he's never taken to the ice with the intention of getting an advantage through cheating. So Yeah, things really heating up in the gentleman's sport here. This is almost like golf, getting into a fight on a golf course or something. You don't see it too much in this sport. So
Well, gentlemen don't cheat, I guess, right?
that's
so
true.
That's
I agree with that. Gentlemen don't cheat, Arlene. That's a good
This
one.
guy looks a little, I don't know, not happy.
He's intense.
He's
you know?
intense, yeah.
He's looking down. That's very tough to. I've never tried it, but I don't know how they do it to get it just right. On target and not too fast. I don't know. It is a very difficult sport, anyway.
Okay, he looks kind of, difficult position there. All right, we're going to move to baseball news. There's new allegations in this pitch rigging scandal, accusing a Cleveland pitcher of being part of the scheme in the playoff game. Is this the guy?
This is the guy. This is Emmanuel Clase, very good reliever. This guy, 3-time All-Star. He's twice been named the best reliever in baseball. But yeah, newly unsealed documents allege, this is by the federal prosecutors, among a number of instances that Cleveland pitcher Emmanuel Clase participated in the illegal gambling scheme during a 2024 playoff game. In other words, they're alleging Clase threw a ball on purpose during a playoff game for the purposes of gambling. Now, prop bets are what these are usually called. This is among a number of instances that they've alleged he's done this. Now, this should be noted that he still retired that hitter. In fact, he retired the side in order. Cleveland still won the game 7-0. Now, Clase's teammate, Luis Ortiz, has also been charged as part of this scandal. Prosecutors say these two took bribes to help gamblers win money. Both players right now are on baseball's restricted list, meaning they're not playing right now. Both, though, have pled not guilty to the charges. It looks like the trial is scheduled, though, to start in May. So we got this trial going. We got the NBA one that's ongoing. There's been a number of these, alleged cheating, I should say gambling scandals going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of heavy-duty work DOJ's doing on this.
Yeah,
they're cracking down on sports.
They're cracking down on sports, exactly, Find it very important, of course, because of course the public, they want to have confidence that these games aren't rigged, of course, at all. I'm sure with these two scandals going on, confidence surely is shaken, I would say, for sure.
Well, it all starts in college, maybe, I don't know, but we've got college basketball, lots of ranked games going on. Tell us about it.
Yeah, there's plenty of scores going on today. Let's start first here in the Big Ten. Michigan beating UCLA 86-56. Wolverines now 24-1 on the season. UCLA drops to 17-8. Also in the Big Ten, number 7 Nebraska beat Northwestern 68-49. Cornhuskers now 22 in the season. This is like their best basketball season in a very long time. Then the SEC, number 19 Vanderbilt beat Texas A&M 82-69. Commodores are having a great season, 22-4 here on the season. Let's look at the ACC. Number 4 Duke beat Clemson 67-54. Blue Devils now 23-2 in the season. Clemson falls to 20-6, and here on the Big 12, here's a tough one here in Arlene. Number 5, Iowa State beat Kansas 74-56, snapping Kansas's 8-game winning streak there. Iowa State now 22-3 on the season. And in the, here we go. St. John's beat Providence 79-69 in the Big East. St. John's ranked number 17 in the country. Got some more scores here in the ACC. North Carolina beat Pittsburgh 79-65. Now the Tar Heels are playing right now without Caleb Wilson, their freshman sensation. This is their first game without him. He suffered that broken hand earlier in the week against Miami. And then you've got the SEC, the defending champion. Florida Gators beat Kentucky 92-83 in that one. And finally, number 3, Houston beat Kansas State 78-64. Now, starting shortly, number 1 Arizona is going to face 16th ranked Texas Tech. We also have tonight at 8 o'clock, number 6 UConn faces Georgetown. And finally at 10:30, Gonzaga, ranked number 12. They are at Santa Clara. So plenty of games this afternoon and plenty of games tonight.
Are they going to be good games? You say number 1 is playing a number 16?
Number 1 is playing a number 16. Now, number 1 just lost earlier this week. This is their first loss this season. They lost to Kansas, by the way.
I know you're not happy about that. Oh, no, you are happy.
I am happy
you are happy about that, yeah.
Although it was at Kansas, and now Kansas got to face them in Arizona pretty soon. So I'm sure they're going to remember that loss. But yeah, I would think Arizona is at least still favored to beat Texas Tech. But you never know, right?
You never know.
That's why they play the game.
Well, enjoy watching the games tonight, Dave, and thanks so much for your sports update.
Thank you, Arlene.
All right. And as today's society works to prepare young men for successful careers and financial stability, far less attention is given to how they navigate family life and relationships, leaving many struggling in that arena. Drawing on his own experience as a father, Stanford-trained physician Dr. Brad Jacobs sat down with Brendan Fallon, host of Vital Signs, to share practical strategies to help men better regulate their emotions and build stronger, healthier relationships. Here's a preview of that episode.
Welcome to the show. I have Dr. Brad Jacobs here today. He's a physician, a Stanford-trained physician, and he's also a specialist in integrative medicine and internal medicine. Dr. Jacobs, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to our conversation.
Certainly, and such an important topic, men, the challenges they're facing in society, and I want to hit to the core, the emotional core of this. I know that you're a father, and your relationship with your daughter, it's been kind of a mirror to you of how you're doing as a man and enacting your masculinity. Where is that relationship at the moment, how has it changed over time?
Yeah, I feel like masculinity really for me is a vital sign. It's actually measurable, and a lot of people like to talk about it. I think actually we can measure it and then we can improve on it. And I think we shame men too often, and I think instead we need to teach men how to regulate. And we can talk more about that. And using me as an example, you know, my model of my father was he was the heavy in the family, and my mom would sort of, you know, discipline us, but then when we weren't listening, Dad would come in as the heavy, and I repeated that model.
Can you give me an example when you say come in as a heavy? What was it like?
So he'd come in with a booming voice, loud. The punishment would be much more severe and long than anything my mother would do. He wouldn't beat me, thankfully. I wasn't physically beaten, but verbally he was intense and intimidating. We can get back to talking about the importance of doing the ACE score, or doing the Adverse Childhood Experience questionnaire, which I think people should do. I score a 3. I encourage you maybe to think about looking at it too if you haven't already. You can score up to 9. So when I became a father, and I have a son and a daughter, they're now 22 and 20. But when my daughter was in her early teenage years, and we would get into it, and I'd come in as the heavy, like I was modeled, right? And my version, I think, was a little heavier. And my daughter, for all her credit, is very smart, can be very brave and fierce, and has a mind of her own and her opinions. And when that ran against what I had thought was right, you know, we had major conflict. So I'd take away her phone for a month when it really should have been probably a day or two, right? That sort of extreme. Raising my voice.
What kind of reactions were you getting to that?
She would meet me right there, so she would raise her voice, right? So, and then she'd storm off and slam the door, and I'd come in, we'd get in heated, and maybe I would slam the door. So I was acting like a teenager, frankly. Thanks to her mother at the time, really said, like, you've got anger management issues. This isn't okay. Like, you're the dad.
Was that a surprise to you to hear that you had anger management issues at that time?
Yeah, because frankly, outside professionally and in the rest of the world, that was never an issue. But in the home, the issues around control, right? So I felt that I need to have power over my daughter. I need to make sure she listens to me. When she's not listening to me, she's disrespecting me, and she's disrespecting the family. Now that's true, of course, right? She's not intentionally disrespecting me. She has a mind of her own and wants to do it her way.
How would you deal with it differently in a more enlightened way after that?
How would I do that differently? That usually involved me raising our voice. She storms off, goes into her bedroom. She slams the door 3 or 4 times. I come into the bedroom, and still heated, and we're in this intellectual debate, and our voices are raised, and everyone can hear through the house. So, okay, Act 2. So number 1 is I actually say Act 2. So I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm really upset right now. And I've done this recently, actually, in the past year. She's in college. I said, you know what, I'm getting more upset. Let's take a moment, give me a break, and we'll come back and revisit this. I need 20 minutes. That's been really helpful, like take time and space. So that's step number 1, is create time and space so I can then go regulate myself. Back to my point about it's measurable. Nowadays you have wearables, you have lots of ways to regulate, you can measure how you're doing. Many men don't know how they're feeling inside.
You can measure your aggression rise, you can measure your anger rising.
You can measure your heart rate going up. You can be taught signs like, oh, I'm sweating, oh, my jaw's tense. We all have different versions of feeling stressed. But under stress, what do you notice about yourself? So that's trainable, that you can learn that. And then physiologically, people's blood pressure go up, people's heart rate goes up, people's heart rate variability drops, and we could talk about what that all means, but it's measurable, right? Cortisol levels go up, and so you can measure those through serum or salivary cortisol levels. So there's lots of physiologic things that change in us.
So in that situation, sorry, I kind of cut you off a little bit there, but so you're aware of what's happening in your body. You're kind of admitting, I'm feeling angry now. I'm at a point where I can't converse rationally. So and from there, what would happen? How would you further deal with it?
Yeah, so at that point I would say I can't converse in a way where I'm emotionally available, right? I mean, I'm pretty much shut down, and now I'm going to either get completely shut down or I'm going to rage. Neither one of those are helpful. And so it will be irrational because, as you know, the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala have this relationship, and when you get upset, that relationship disintegrates, and now you're just acting on your amygdala, emotionally just reactive. So with her, I would really be like, I need a pause in time and space. And she'd often need the pause too, but I just own my side of the street, and I would go and do something. So I'd go in nature, I'd go for a walk, I would do some yoga, I'd do some breathing, play guitar, things for me that were regulating. Then we can come back and readdress it. And then I'd be a lot more calm and say, let me try this again. I'm sorry I was raising my voice, but regardless of how she was acting, it doesn't matter. I'm just owning my part. And say, let me try this again. We talked about you not taking the phone. You did take the phone. There's got to be consequences. So let's think about what feels right and fair.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
Coming up, as the Olympic Games continue in Milan on Valentine's Day, couples are flocking to see a kiss that's lasted more than a century. Sherry Ning brings us a look. And carpets crafted for Louis XIV are now in display in Paris. For the first time, these royal masterpieces are reunited in a rare exhibition. Andrew Thomas has the story. As excitement for the Winter Olympics continues, Valentine's Day is drawing visitors in Milan to a historic museum where love is captured on canvas. NTD's Sherry Ning has the story.
At the Pinacoteca di Brera Museum, couples kiss and embrace in front of a painting as they mimic the pose of the loving figures captured on canvas.
The Kiss by Francesco Hayez is one of the great masterpieces of the Pinacoteca di Brera. And every year, countless visitors come to Milan from all around the world to admire the passionate encounter of these two lovers.
For many couples, the painting was the highlight of their rainy Valentine's Day visit.
Surely one thing that the painting and our couple have in common is the love that the two protagonists feel. So seeing in person a painting that represents that feeling is moving, because in the end, the sensations, however much generations may change, and therefore habits evolve, the emotions are always the same. So it's very touching to see a painting that speaks of an emotion that we all feel every day. And it seemed like a perfect opportunity to see it live today.
While for some others, it was a lovely surprise.
Well, we do not celebrate Valentine's, but...
Sometimes we do. It depends on the year.
But not today.
No, not today. It's a coincidence. Not today. The big coincidence is that today is the Olympic game and we came to Milano without this knowledge. It was a big surprise for us.
Beyond romance, the painting also symbolizes peace and unity between nations, a fitting theme during the Olympic Games.
Francesco Hayez painted these masterpieces in 1859, a year in which Italy won the Second War of Independence against the Austrians thanks to the help of the French. So Francesco Hayez represented a boy dressed in the colors of Italy that is kissing a girl with the colors of France.
As athletes from around the world compete for medals, this 19th century kiss continues to draw crowds, a reminder that love and unity can outlast even the fiercest rivalries. Sherry Ning, NTD News.
Detailed carpets made for Louis XIV are on display at a Paris museum. For the first time, the elaborate pieces have been brought together for a rare exhibition. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the tapestries that once belonged to the French king.
32 detailed carpets have been rolled out at the Grand Palais in Paris. In part, the exhibition illustrates the decadence of French King Louis XIV. Curator Wolf Burchard says the event is a first.
We rolled out 32 of the carpets that were made for Louis XIV 350 years ago. This was a series of 92 carpets that were made for the Long Gallery at the Louvre, and they were never rolled out in their entirety because Louis XIV lost interest in the Louvre and moved to Versailles.
The carpets were commissioned to cover over 1,600 feet and took nearly 20 years to complete. Tapestries fit for a king.
What you see when you look at the gallery is just how much yellow there is, and all that is supposed to evoke gold, so sort of gilt wood frames. And the idea was really that this was supposed to be a sort of golden path to the throne of the King of France.
The carpets were designed to make a statement. Burchard says the tapestries would have been accompanied by silver furniture and a painted ceiling.
The idea was that an ambassador at the court of France would walk across that gallery that's half a kilometer long, and by the time you'd reach the throne, you would really be in awe of the wealth and the power of the King of France.
Producing carpets on this scale required a large team of weavers. Burchard explains how each carpet has its own story to tell.
And this one on the subject of love is particularly well preserved. It was in the office of the President of France at the Élysée for several decades, and it's absolutely beautiful and a really sophisticated design with a wonderful white background that almost looks like porcelain with all kinds of ribbons.
Many pieces were sold, cut, or scattered across Europe over centuries. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's the news for this evening. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Arlene Richards. Good night.